At dinner my sister laughed. Some people should be grateful they're even here, especially when they didn't pay. I just walked out. What they didn't know was the private dining room and the $5,200 tab were on my account. 20 minutes later, the staff came back to the table, and the mood changed instantly. My sister called me the family charity case at my parents' 30th wedding anniversary dinner. In a private dining room that I booked, that I was paying for. $5,200 on my card. And nobody at that table knew it except me and the restaurant manager. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name is Jolene. Yeah, like the Dolly Parton song. Trust me, I've heard every joke. I'm 34, I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I run a small but very successful consulting firm that I built from absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean I started this business from a studio apartment with a laptop that overheated every 45 minutes. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it because context matters when I tell you that my older sister, Deborah, has spent the last decade acting like I'm the broke one. Deborah is 38. She married a guy named Todd. Nice guy, decent job, works in insurance. And ever since that wedding ring went on her finger, Deborah decided she was the successful sibling. She's got the house in the suburbs, the 2 kids, the SUV with the 3rd row seating. And look, good for her. I genuinely mean that. I never had a problem with Deborah doing well. My problem started when Deborah decided that me doing well somehow threatened her. See, here's what you need to know about my family. My parents, Frank and Diane, are good people. They are. But they have this blind spot the size of Texas when it comes to Deborah. She's the oldest. She gave them grandkids first. He had the big church wedding. In their eyes, Deborah checked every box. Me. I was the one who moved away after college, started a business instead of getting a real job. And this is the part that really got under my mom's skin. I didn't get married by 30. My mom once told me during a Thanksgiving dinner, Jolene, you work so hard, but what's it all for if you come home to an empty apartment? Right in front of everybody. And I just sat there chewing my green beans like I didn't want to scream. But here's the thing, I had someone in my corner. My dad's mother, Grandma Ruthie. 81 years old, sharp as a tack, and the only person in my family who ever looked at me and said, baby, you're doing just fine. Grandma Ruthie was the one who slipped me $300 when I started my business. She was the one who called me every Sunday to ask how things were going. She didn't care that I wasn't married. She cared that I was happy. And I was happy. Mostly. Except every time I went home for a family event, Deborah would find a way to remind me, and everyone else, that she was the one who had it all figured out. Little comments. You know the kind. Oh, Jolene, are you still doing that little computer thing? My consulting firm had 12 employees at that point. Must be nice not having real responsibilities. No kids, no mortgage. I had a mortgage. On a condo I bought myself. You should really let Todd look at your finances. He's really good with money. Todd once asked me what an index fund was. I let it all slide. Every time. Because that's what I did. That was my role in the family, Jolene the easygoing one. Jolene the one who doesn't make waves. Jolene the one who quietly picks up the check at dinner and never mentions it. And that's the part that kills me. Because I had been quietly helping this family financially for years and not a single one of them, not Deborah, not my mom, not even my dad, had any idea. Started about 5 years ago. My dad needed a new roof. He mentioned it casually one Sunday, how the estimate came in at $14,000 and he was going to dip into his retirement. I called the roofing company the next morning and paid the whole thing. Told my dad the company had a promotion and cut the price in half, and I covered the rest as an early Christmas gift. He teared up, hugged me, then never mentioned it to anyone. My mom needed dental work. 2 implants, almost $9,000. I paid it. Told her the dental office had a financing plan with 0 interest and I helped set it up. She thanked me once and moved on. Deborah's oldest, my nephew Marcus, needed braces. Deborah was complaining about it at Easter, saying they couldn't afford the full treatment. I called the orthodontist on Monday. Paid in full. Told Deborah the office called and said their insurance covered more than expected. Do you see the pattern here? I was funding half this family's life and I was doing it invisibly. Because I loved them. And because I didn't need credit for it. I just wanted them to be okay. But Deborah never missed a chance to take a shot at me. And nobody ever stopped her. Not once did my mom say, Deborah, that's enough. Not once did my dad say, your sister's doing great. They just let it happen. And every time I swallowed it, smiled and moved on. So when my parents' 30th anniversary came around, guess who stepped up? Me. Obviously. My mom had always dreamed of a big family dinner at Bellamy's. This upscale restaurant in downtown Richmond with a private dining room, a tasting menu, the whole thing. She'd mentioned it for years. Wouldn't it be lovely to have a family dinner at Bellamy's? She'd say, flipping through a magazine. Maybe one day. So I made it happen. I called Bellamy's 3 months in advance. Booked the private dining room. Set up a custom menu. Appetizers, entrees, desserts, wine pairings, the works. Total cost, $5,200. On my personal card. No one asked me to do it. No one even knew I was doing it. I told my parents that the restaurant had a special anniversary package, and that I'd helped coordinate it. I didn't mention the price. I didn't mention that I was paying for everything. I just wanted them to have a beautiful night. The guest list was small. My parents, me, Deborah and Todd, their kids Marcus and little Sadie, and my cousin Whitney who drove up from Charlotte. Grandma Ruthie couldn't make it. She'd had a knee replacement and was recovering, but she called me that morning and said, "Make sure you have a good time, baby. And don't let Deborah get under your skin." I should have listened. The dinner started beautifully. Bellamy's did an incredible job. The private dining room had this gorgeous chandelier, soft music, white tablecloths, candles. My mom walked in and actually gasped. My dad put his arm around her and said, "Can you believe this?" It was perfect. The first course came out, a butternut squash bisque with truffle oil, and everyone was smiling, talking, having a great time. Todd was being Todd, making corny jokes about how he needed a dictionary to read the menu. Marcus was trying to sneak bread rolls into his jacket pocket. Little Sadie was coloring on the back of the dessert card. It was nice. Felt like family. And then Deborah opened her mouth. We were between the second and third courses. The wine was flowing. My cousin Whitney was telling a funny story about her road trip up from Charlotte, and everyone was laughing. And then out of absolutely nowhere, Deborah leaned back in her chair, looked right at me and said, loud enough for the entire table to hear, "You know, some people should really be grateful they're even here. Especially when they didn't pay." The table went quiet. I looked at her. She had this smug little smile on her face, swirling her wine glass. Wine that was on my tap, by the way, and she just stared at me like she'd said the most clever thing in the world. My mom looked down at her plate. My dad cleared his throat. Todd suddenly became very interested in his napkin. Whitney looked at me with these wide eyes like she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. And you know what I did? I put my napkin on the table. Very calmly. And I said, "Excuse me." I stood up. I pushed my chair in. And I walked out of that private dining room without saying another word. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I just left. Because here's what Deborah didn't know. Here's what none of them knew. Every single thing on that table, every glass of wine, every truffle-drizzled appetizer, every perfectly seared steak, was on my card. The private room, my reservation, the custom menu, my request, the $5,200 bill that was going to land at the end of the night, my name was on it, and I had just walked out. I sat in my car in the parking lot for about 10 minutes. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, from anger. Pure white-hot anger. Because I had spent years, being the invisible backbone of this family, and the one time I create something beautiful for all of them, my sister uses it as a chance to humiliate me. I pulled out my phone. I called the restaurant. I asked for the manager, a lovely woman named Patricia who I'd been coordinating with for weeks. And I said, "Patricia, I need to remove my card from the tab. The table can sort out the bill themselves." There was a pause. Then Patricia said very professionally, "Of course, Ms. Jolene. I'll take care of it." I hung up. I sat there for another minute. And then I drove home. Now I want you to picture what happened next inside that restaurant. Because I wasn't there for it, but Whitney, bless her heart, called me that same night and told me every single detail. About 20 minutes after I left, the staff came back to the table. The courses kept coming because the kitchen had already prepared everything. But when the last plate was cleared and the table was winding down, the server walked in and placed the bill on the table. Not handed it to anyone specifically, just placed it right in the center in its little leather folder. My dad reached for it. He opened it. And according to Whitney, his face went completely white. $5,200. Plus tax. Plus the automatic gratuity for private dining events. He looked at my mom. My mom looked at Deborah. Deborah looked at Todd. Todd looked at the bill like it was written in another language. And then my dad said very quietly, "Where's Jolene?" Nobody answered. Whitney told me the silence at that table lasted a full 30 seconds. 30 seconds of every single person slowly realizing that the dinner they'd all been enjoying, the dinner Deborah had mocked me for supposedly not paying for, had been entirely on me. Deborah, for the first time in maybe her entire life, had nothing to say. My dad pulled out his credit card and paid the bill. All of it. He didn't say a word to anyone on the drive home. Me. I was already in my pajamas, sitting on my couch with a glass of wine that cost $12, watching a cooking show and feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Because something had shifted in me that night. Something cracked open. And very soon, Everything about my relationship with this family was going to change. Because that dinner, that was just the beginning of what I decided to do next. So after the anniversary dinner, I went dark. No calls, no texts, no responses. And let me tell you, the messages started coming in fast. My dad called the next morning. I let it ring. His voicemail was classic Frank. Mostly breathing, then, "Jolene, honey, call me back when you get a chance." That's my dad. The man needs 3 business days to process a feeling. My mom texted me, and this is the part that still stings. "Jolene, I don't know what happened last night, but you really embarrassed your father and me by leaving like that. That was supposed to be our special evening." She didn't say, "Are you okay?" She didn't say, "I'm sorry about what Deborah said." She said I embarrassed them. At the dinner I planned. That I paid for. That I organized down to the napkin folds. And somehow I was the problem. I'm not going to lie. That one hurt. Coming from Deborah? Expected. But your mom making you the villain hits different. No matter how old you are, no matter how successful, when your mother takes the other side, it lands somewhere deep. I almost called her back. Almost. But then I thought, no. Not this time. This time they sit with it. Whitney called me that afternoon. Now Whitney is my ride or die. My cousin on my dad's side, 31, lives in Charlotte, works as a nurse, and has never been afraid of a single thing in her life. First words out of her mouth, "Girl. Girl." Actually laughed. First time since the night before. She told me everything that happened after I left. After my dad paid the $5,200 bill, plus tax plus gratuity, the ride home was dead silent. No goodbyes in the parking lot. No hugs. Nothing. But here's the part that got me. Whitney said right before everyone split up, my dad turned to Deborah and said, "Did you know your sister was paying for tonight?" Deborah said, "What?" "The whole thing. The room, the food, everything." It was Jolene. Whitney said Deborah just stood there. Mouth open. Todd grabbed the kids, got in the car. And Deborah stood in that parking lot for a good 10 seconds before walking away without saying a single word. Now you'd think that would trigger an apology, right? Learning your sister dropped over $5,000 on a dinner where you publicly mocked her. That should activate some basic human decency? 3 days. No call from Deborah. No text. Nothing. Meanwhile, my mom left another voicemail. "Jolene, this silent treatment is very childish. We're a family. Whatever's going on, we need to talk about it like adults." Childish. She called me childish. Her other daughter humiliated me at a dinner I secretly financed, and that was just, what? Deborah being Deborah. I called Grandma Ruthie. Because when nothing makes sense, you call the one person who always does. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey baby. I was waiting for this call." I told her everything. All of it. And she listened the way she always does. Quiet, patient, no interruptions. When I finished, she said something I'll never forget. "You know what your problem is, Jolene? You love too loud and too quiet at the same time. You give everything and you never let anyone see it. And then you wonder why nobody says thank you." That hit me right in the chest. "You did the right thing walking out," she said. "But now you gotta do the harder thing. You gotta stop being invisible." And she was right. The whole family ran on this unspoken deal. Jolene gives, Jolene pays, Jolene shows up, and nobody has to acknowledge it. The second I stopped playing along, they didn't ask what went wrong. They blamed me for ruining the game. So I made a decision. Maybe the smartest thing I've ever done. Maybe the pettiest. Probably both. I stopped paying for everything. Cold turkey. My dad's car insurance I'd been covering for a year and a half? Canceled. My mom's fancy organic meal delivery service? Canceled. Marcus's monthly orthodontist payments? Stopped. The lawn service for my parents' house? Gone. Deborah's family gym membership I'd been funding? Let it expire. Every single financial thread I'd been holding for this family, snipped in 1 week. Then I waited. Took about 12 days for the first domino to fall. My dad called, confused, his insurance payment bounced. "I've been paying on time every month, I don't understand." My stomach turned. I loved my dad. But I stayed calm. "That's strange, Dad. You should call them and figure it out." Didn't explain. Didn't offer. Just let it sit. Then my mom, her meal delivery stopped. "Did you know anything about that, Jolene?" Maybe check your account settings." Then Deborah. And this was the one I'd been bracing for. "Marcus's orthodontist says there's a balance. The insurance didn't cover what we thought. Do you know anything about this?" I almost laughed. Almost said, "Deborah, I paid for those braces. I paid for everything." But I didn't. Grandma Ruthie said stop being invisible. She didn't say announce it. There's a difference. So I said, "I don't know, Deborah. Maybe look into it." And she said, "I swear this is real. It's really frustrating. Todd's stressed, the kids are expensive, and nobody helps us. Nobody helps them. Nobody helps them." I bit my tongue so hard I'm surprised it didn't bleed. I hope you figure it out, I said. And hung up. Over the next few weeks, things unraveled slowly. My parents realized the lawn service wasn't coming. My dad had to cover his full insurance premium. My mom started complaining about grocery prices. Deborah and Todd were suddenly on a tight budget. And nobody, not one person, connected it back to me. Until Whitney did. He came to visit me in Richmond and we were sitting on my porch with iced tea. She looked at me and said, "You pulled the plug on everything, didn't you?" He grinned. The second your mom complained about her meal thing, I knew. Jolene went nuclear. I didn't go nuclear. I just stopped. Baby, for this family that is nuclear. She wasn't wrong. But here's what I didn't expect. About 3 weeks in, my mom said something on the phone that changed everything. We were having a nothing conversation, her neighbor's dog, book club drama, and right before hanging up she said almost like an afterthought, "You know, Jolene, I sometimes wonder if you'd be happier if you just tried harder to fit in with this family instead of always keeping one foot out the door." Something inside me went cold. Because that's what she believed. After everything, the years of support, the secret payments, the planning, the showing up, she thought I was the one pulling away. I said, "I gotta go, Mom." And hung up. I sat on my kitchen floor for 20 minutes. Not crying. Just thinking. Wondering how I became the villain in a story where I'd only ever been the one holding everything together. That's when I decided the payments weren't enough. I needed to talk to my dad. Not Deborah, not my mom. Frank. Because if anyone in this family was going to actually hear me, it was him. I drove to my parents' house on a Tuesday. Didn't call ahead. My mom was at book club. It was just Dad in his recliner watching the news. He looked up and said, "Hey, Bug." That's what he called me growing up. Because I used to collect ladybugs in the backyard. I sat across from him and said, "Dad, I need to tell you something and I need you to just listen." He muted the TV. And I told him everything. The roof. The dental work. The braces. The insurance. The meal delivery. The lawn service. The gym. Every single invisible payment laid out in plain language. When I got to the part about removing my card from the anniversary dinner, his eyes went red. "You paid for that whole dinner," he said. Not a question. "Yes." "And Deborah said that to you?" "Yes." He rubbed his face with both hands. Sat quiet for a long time. Then very softly, "I'm sorry, Bug." And I believed him. But sorry wasn't going to be enough this time. Sorry doesn't change the system. Sorry doesn't stop Deborah. And sorry doesn't undo what my mom said. What I needed was change. Real change. And whether this family could deliver, that was about to be tested. Because what happened next involved Deborah, a family meeting, and a truth she absolutely did not see coming. My dad called a family meeting. His idea. Told everyone, Saturday afternoon, the house, no excuses. When my mom asked why, he just said, "We need to talk." My dad doesn't waste words, so when he uses them, people show up. I almost didn't go. Sat in my car outside for 10 minutes running through every way this could blow up. Family meetings in my house always became Deborah's show. She'd talk the loudest, cry first, and walk out the victim. But Grandma Ruthie called that morning. "You going?" "Maybe." "You're going. And you're letting them hear the real you. Not the version that keeps everyone comfortable." So I went. Deborah was already at the dining table, arms crossed. My mom was fussing in the kitchen. Todd had the kids out back. My dad stood by the window, not angry, just tired. Like a man ready to set something heavy down. "Sit down, everybody." We sat. He said, "I'm going to talk. Let me finish." Then he laid it all out. The roof. The dental work. Marcus's braces. The insurance. The lawn service. The meal delivery. Everything. One by one. "Your sister's been taking care of this family for years. Quietly. And we didn't just miss it, we punished her for it." My mom started. "Frank, I didn't know." "That's the point, Diane." Then he turned to Deborah. The room went still. "Your sister paid for that anniversary dinner. Every cent. The room, the food, the wine you were holding when you told her she should be grateful she was even there." Deborah stared at the table. "And Marcus's braces. Jolene paid those too. No insurance miracle. She called and paid because you said you couldn't afford it." He paused. "So why do you treat her like she's less than you?" Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then Deborah did something I genuinely didn't expect. No yelling. No eye roll. She put her hands flat on the table and said quietly, "Because it was easier." I blinked. "It was easier to make you small than to admit you were doing better than me," she said, still not looking at me. "You built something alone. You didn't need anyone to feel complete. Every time I saw you, I felt like I was falling behind. So I made the jokes. The comments. If I could make you feel less, then I didn't have to." Nobody moved. "That's not an excuse. I was cruel. And I'm sorry." I didn't have some perfect response. I just sat there crying, nodding because I couldn't trust my voice. Then my mom said, "Jolene, why didn't you just tell us?" And that, like it was my fault for not advertising my generosity, brought me right back. Because I shouldn't have had to, Mom. You didn't need a receipt to treat me with respect. To defend me when Deborah took shots. To ask how I was doing instead of asking why I'm not married. She opened her mouth. Closed it. You told me at Thanksgiving, what's it all for if you come home to an empty apartment? My own mother. In front of everyone. And you never once came back and said sorry. Her eyes filled. She looked at my dad. He didn't rescue her. Then she stood up, walked around the table and hugged me. Not a quick one. A real one. The kind from when I was little and scared of storms. "I'm sorry, baby," she said. I let her hold me. One hug doesn't erase years. But she was trying. And sometimes that's where it starts. Things didn't magically fix after that. No movie moment. But they shifted. Deborah called a few days later. Asked about my business, actually asked. Didn't call it, that little computer thing. She started texting me too. Photos of Marcus, random check-ins. Awkward but real. Like she was learning to be a sister again. My mom started catching herself. She'd begin saying something about my personal life. Pause, redirect. I just want you happy, whatever that looks like. Not perfect. But effort I could feel. My dad and I started Tuesday phone calls. Just us. He became my quiet ally. Shutting Deborah down when she slipped. Changing the subject when Mom got nosy. And me, I chose forward like Grandma Ruthie told me. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving ahead instead of staying stuck. I didn't go back to invisible payments. That was done. But I showed up again on my terms. A pie at Sunday dinner instead of bankrolling the meal. $20 in Marcus's birthday card instead of secretly funding his orthodontics. Last Thanksgiving, everyone was at my parents' house. Deborah brought her sweet potato casserole. Incredible, I'll give her that. Todd carved the turkey, only cut himself once. Whitney drove up from Charlotte. Marcus showed off some app he built for school. Little Sadie had lost her front teeth and wouldn't stop grinning. And Grandma Ruthie was there. Knee-heeled, head of the table, bright purple sweater, drinking cider from a wine glass because, her words, "I'm 81, I do what I want." During dinner, Deborah looked at me and said in front of everyone, "Jolene, this is really nice. All of us here. I don't say it enough, but I'm glad you're my sister." Good quiet this time. He meant it. "I'm glad you're my sister too, Deb." Grandma Ruthie raised her glass. "Well, it's about dang time." Everyone laughed. Even Mom. It's not perfect. Probably won't be. But now they see me. Not the easygoing version that keeps the peace. The real one. The one who built her own life, carried this family on her back and finally said, "Enough." That's family, I think. Not the fairy tale. The messy kind where people hurt each other and then choose to do better. I chose them. This time they chose me back. That's my story. Thanks for sticking with me through it. If you enjoyed it, a like means more than you'd think. And if you would have handled something differently, I'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Means the world.